Good afternoon. Allow me to introduce myself. My name's Andy Needham. I'm the head of production at Chillingo. And my colleague here, Will Whitehead, is one of our most experienced producers. We're here today to join you guys at the very first game jam that we've attended here in Sofia. And hopefully today we can sort of give you an overview of how we help independent developers publish games on the mobile platform. Who are Chillingo? Well, Chillingo has been around now for 10 years. We're part of Electronic Arts. And in that time, we've probably published hundreds of games on behalf of independent developers. And during that time, we've seen developers grow from all countries all over the world, and we've also become fans of the creativity and invention that we've seen amongst the independent developer community. So I'm hoping that over the next 48 hours, while we're here, we too at first hand will see that same creativity and invention amongst you guys. So we feel very privileged to be here, and thank you all for letting us come. So I've mentioned the independent developers that we work with, and I'd like to give you just an idea of the type of developers out there. And we work with everybody, from one-man teams such as Reese Mildridge on Icicle, on Thin Ice, right through to IP owners like Mattel and He-Man. Now, each one of those vary differently for what services they want from us. And each and every time, we'll tailor a program that's bespoke just to them. Naturally, because we're dealing with so many different developers, we're dealing with every type of game you could imagine. And of the hundreds of games we've published, I think we must have published every single genre you could imagine. Right from the sort of surreal, artistic experience that you'd get in Contre-Jour, right through to the mass market casual games such as Cut the Rope and Angry Birds. Each one of these games gets assigned a producer, and alongside this producer is a team of professionals who will provide services. So the producer starts to work with the team who are developing the game, and some of the tools that are available to him are such as production. He'll be there trying to guide from his experience those developers to enhance all the characteristics of each of the games. Will go into a bit more detail about what we try to get those games to be like. Another important factor is monetization, or the retail experience. And it's vital that you get the best business model, whether it's paid or whether it's free-to-play. And free-to-play in this particular market is a skill in itself. You've got to try and make sure that you keep the game fun for everybody to play, not just those who pay to play. And one of the things we try to instill in everybody is to value every single player that you get in your game. Everybody's valuable, and you really want to hang on to each and every one of them for as long as you can. Analytics. I think since I've started, I've seen the importance of analytics grow immensely, especially now where a lot of games are live service, they're dynamic, and you need to know what's happening with the game and what feedback you're getting from your players. Not just for you to increase the money side of things, but more importantly, to make sure the game is constantly tuning and getting better for your player. It's important that you make sure you're putting your players first. Everything else will follow. We also have a graphics team. Mobile market is a very visual market, and you have a very limited space in which to sell your product. So our team makes sure that your assets are world class, and they will spend an immense amount of time focused on making sure your icon, which is the most powerful marketing tool you've got, is absolutely perfect. We have marketing. We make sure that you're strategically targeting your audience that is needed. And again, we can target those through our own networks. We've said before, we're part of Electronic Arts, and there's an enormous network for which we can use to engage with players. Communications. We have public relations and community relations. More and more, it's getting important to be able to reach out and communicate, not just with the industry, but also with your players. To listen to them, react to them, and return back with a better game. So I've managed to speak about those tools in a very broad sense, but I'll hopefully try and give you a more specific insight and give you a case study of just one example of how a producer worked with a developer to bring about a change in the game that improved its engagement and retention and monetization. The game in itself is called Iron Force. It's by a Chinese developer called Coolfish, and the producer, Chris Spencer, worked with Wuzhen on the game right from the very beginning. When Chris first got the game, he was looking at the tutorial. It's vital that you get your tutorial perfect. It's so easy to lose a player within the first few seconds or minutes of a game because they get lost. So when he looked at the UI, there's lots of boxes full of text, and the text for the tutorial was in a box. So what he did, he asked him to bring in an avatar. That avatar acted as a contrast to the rest of the screen. It focused the eye onto that avatar, and players soon got to know that when you saw the avatar, read the instructions and follow the instructions, and that keeps them in the game. One of the next things he looked at was the scoreboards. Now, every game's got a scoreboard, but in this particular online multiplayer, social gaming and the social leaderboard is what drives the game. That's the thing, keeping players engaged by competing against each other, trying to be top of the leagues. And it wasn't just sort of the overall scoreboard, it was in battle as well. What happens is every time you die in Iron Force, a scoreboard appears just for that particular round. And more importantly, it gets you to see where you are in that battle. And one of the tricks Chris put on is he put a little target on. That target on your score was the person who killed you. And that riles people up and brings them back into the game for revenge. We also used a weekly tournament. And the winners of the weekly tournament had a very special prize. They were the only ones who could buy a Monoceros tank. This is the most prestigious tank you could imagine. To own one to the players, I think some of them would swap it for a Rolls Royce. Or, well, would swap a Rolls Royce for this Monoceros tank. It is such a prestigious thing to have, mainly because it shows that you were a winner. Another thing Chris looked at was the timer. When we first played the game, it was 6-7 minutes. In mobile, that's an eternity. You know, people only play for short periods because that's all they've got available on a lunch break or on a train. And also, we got in touch with Electronic Arts, who were able to supply us with information and research, you know, world class. Nobody else has that sort of intelligence. And they came back to us and said, it's 3 minutes. Don't go beyond 3 minutes. And we said, why? And it says, well, it's because in that period, you bring down the shutter, those people are still emotionally charged. They're still excited because they're winning. They're still mad because they want revenge. And when that game's finished, what we do, we take them through the shop. They're emotionally charged, and they want to win again. That's the point where you can present to them your commerce, the things to buy, the things to increase their power. And that's one of the reasons why it's a very successful game. One of the other things we added was chat. This is a social game. And what chat allowed players to do is they allowed them to form legions. They could gather teams of the best players. And for the best players to be in a particular legion, again, was a very prestigious thing to be in. It's what was driving them. To be able to say, I'm in this legion. And to get in that legion, you have to be in a particular tank. You have to be a particular rank. If there's a legion having a battle, it reaches out to its players. Come into the battle now. You're needed. So again, the legion recruits players for you, but it keeps your players in your game. One great feature was the parachute drops. In this particular game, unlike World of Tanks, it's an arena battle. It's a much more intense game. And what we found is at the beginning, when players were in the arena, they were hiding, they were playing snipers. And the game was not as exciting as it could be. So Chris said, drop these parachutes in, bring prizes in. These would be power-ups that make your shells more powerful, they increase your return of fire. But what it did then, it drew people out of cover. It drew people into the line of fire of other players. And all of a sudden, we had a whole new lot of tactics to play with. People who had lightweight tanks that were fast could now dash out, grab that big shell, turn around and hit the monster that was chasing them. And that, again, people develop their own tactics. And once they've developed their own tactics, they feel they are in charge and engage with your game. So hopefully that allows you to see just a little example of what value it can bring. So I think if I need to summarize what working with a publisher does for you as an independent developer is that I hope to think we could increase your chances of success just for experience and relationships that we have. I hope we could decrease the risk to your business. You're able to plug in a very experienced team at no cost to yourself, especially before you start to earn revenue. There's no risk to you. I also like to think that it'll keep you focused on what you do best. That's making your game. You don't have to worry about that. We're sorting that out for you. And I think what's more important to us, as at Chillingo, after that experience, we see the developers grow. We see them get better and more experienced. And it's not just the game we want to see, it's the second game, it's the third game. Because each and every time they come to us, those games and services just keep getting better. So it's at this point, I'm going to hand over to Will. He's going to give you some insight and tips that I hope will be useful for you over the next 48 hours. Thank you very much.
Hello? We're on. Good.
Yeah.
Hello, Game Jam. Good to see you all here. I got asked to come to Game Jam around Christmas. And that evening, I went home and I Googled Game Jam. And I'm glad I had Google Safe Search on, I can tell you that. So, first of all, I want to do a little quiz with you, just to give you a bit more of an idea after what Andy said about who we are, and test your knowledge about how you've been concentrating. So, can anyone tell me here what any of these characters are, these silhouettes? They all represent a game that has come through the Chillingo system, and they all came from an independent developer just like yourselves. They had a mechanic, an idea, or a concept. So, anyone got any ideas? Yeah? There we go. Sorry, everyone. We've got a winner. Yes, absolutely. So, who are Angry Birds? Cut the Rope. And our Iron Force that you heard a lot about before. And as I say, each one of these has been a particular success story that have come through the Chillingo pipeline. So I want to tell you a little bit about what we think about within Chillingo when it comes to publishing games and helping developers to publish successful games. And really, we've come up with something that kind of says, what should you think about first when you're developing a game? Is it, you want to make money? You want to be famous for having the best ever game on a mobile device? But really, it comes down to why I got into the games industry, and probably why a lot of you guys have got into the games industry or want to get into the game industry. And it all comes down to the fun. That's why I got into the industry. And then if you think about it, it's why gamers play games. Why do they play games? It's because they want to have fun, right? So, obviously, what we have to do is put the player first. And by doing that, we put the fun first. Because without fun, you're not going to get anyone playing your game. And even if you do get them playing your game, they're not going to stay playing your game. And without those things, without the player, you're not going to go up the charts. You're not going to get great reviews, or it may be a Metacritic score that you're after. Maybe you want to make money out of games, who knows? But you're not going to get any of those things without putting the player first. And once you've got that, you put the player first, you've got the fun, and everything else can be built around it. So that's one of the key things that we kind of bring to people and make them think about is the player. That is the most important thing. Now, last-minute tips. I don't want to teach you guys how to suck eggs. You've all got great ideas, I'm sure, and you've probably created 100 games in your head before, or even real games. And obviously, I want to get to meet as many of you guys as possible and talk to you about those. But I did just put a few ideas together that might give you a bit of a helping hand along the way. And there they are. I mean, 48 hours. It's quite an incredible task. And, anything can happen in those 24 hours. I was looking back at a few other game jams, and I didn't realize that Surgeon Simulator 2013 was made at a game jam in 48 hours. That's incredible. And what's more incredible, actually, is that I then found out that 48 days after that game jam, the full version of that game was released on Steam. So that's the sort of thing that can be achieved this weekend. No pressure. So, I mean, most of all, I think just remember, as I say, anything can happen. So be agile. Try and find that fun. And while you're doing that, just try and have fun as well. And before we go, there's our website for when you do make that killer game and you want a hand publishing it. And good luck, everyone.